Rimuru had been using spatial domination to travel as of late, which allowed him to instantly transport himself anywhere he had visited before. Its magicule consumption was quite large, but it was a negligible portion of his total magicule storage. He was free to use it as much as he wanted now, which made travel pretty simple. Although he needed to regulate his use, since he'd look so lame if he abused it and went into sleep mode as a result. By the way, as soon as Rimuru returned to town, Ranga contacted him with telepathy net. Ranga said, "Master, Gobku and the workers have gathered at West Gate, but..." Ranga paused and Rimuru got curious as to what happened. So he walked towards the West Gate when he felt uneasy. He used spatial domination to instantly teleport and universal perception to sense the wide area to catch on to the location of Ranga. Rimuru appeared at Ranga's location, and it was outside the West Gate. Gobku seemed to be arguing with someone. Rimuru hid off to the side to eavesdrop, and what he heard was astonishing. Ramiris said to Gobku, "I've already told you. We are taking over this place." And Gobku disagrees. "I know what you said, ma'am, but we can't really accept that, do you understand? I'll be reporting to Rimuru-sama right now. Please do not move around by yourself and stay here for a bit." And Ramiris interrupted, "No way. We abandoned our previous labyrinth just to visit here. Are you going to kick out a poor, homeless woman with no place else to go?" And Gobku is having a hard time explaining, "Even if you say so. Anyhow, this land has been officially included under Rimuru-sama's rule after he became a demon lord. So you will need to obtain his permission first." Then Ramiris butts in again, "Ha ha ha ha, it seems that playing the pity card didn't work either. In that case, I'll have to resort to force. I'll tell you now, my Beretta won't allow you to keep fussing over such trivial stuff." Rimuru couldn't stand any more of it, so he sneaked up behind the problematic figure. With a swift motion, he effortlessly plucked her out of the air. He looked at her face. It was indeed Ramiris. Rimuru asked her, "What are you doing here?" And Ramiris got surprised with his sudden presence. Hey there Rimuru. How's it going?" She greeted him while avoiding eye contact. She was clearly aware of the trouble she found herself in. Ramiris declared that she had taken over the place, so there was probably something she's hiding. Rimuru asked himself how did Ramiris built the shack over there, and he was answered when Trainee came. She said, "Ramiris-sama. I've brought new wood." Trainee's hands were full with wood. Rimuru was surprised, Trainee, what are you up to?" And Trainee shared the same reaction, "Ah. It's Rimuru-sama, long time no see." Rimuru thinks that did it not occur to them that building a hut right in front of the town gate might get spotted pretty fast? He asked, "What is going on here, Trainee-san?" And she got nervous answering, About that, it's not what it looks like. It's not Ramiris-sama's fault, it's..." Rimuru thinks that Trainee always looked very professional in the past, but ever since she began to serve Ramiris, she had started becoming inept. Like master, like servant, he guesses. Speaking of which, the only person who could explain this clearly was probably him, Beretta, who immediately kneeled upon seeing Rimuru. Rimuru commanded, "Come and explain things a bit, Beretta." And Beretta says, "It always has to be me, doesn't it?" Beretta gave up his struggle and began to explain. According to him, all of this started because of a speech given by Ramiris. Ramiris escaped from Rimuru's hands and shouted, "Beretta, you traitor." Rimuru ignored her and listened to Beretta's story. Beretta said that Ramiris wanted to move to Rimuru's town no matter what, to which Trainee also agreed. Rimuru glanced at Trainee's direction and saw that her eyes were downcast in embarrassment. Apparently, Trainee was spoiling Ramiris at all times. This rings true given it was the same when they met before. Neither she nor Beretta would dare defy this lady, so they were all but forced into. This would be invasion of Rimuru's land. Beretta concluded, and also, as Lady Ramiris stated, "We came here after sealing off the entryway to the labyrinth we called home before." Where Ramiris agrees, "Right. Exactly. So Rimuru, if you chase me from here, I'll be homeless." She said pitifully, but no matter how she put it, she clearly had it coming. Also, Trainee was saying, how poor Ramiris-sama is. Rimuru thinks that they keep on spoiling her. But then again, he now understood the situation. Gobku didn't start the quarrel. The fault was in Ramiris's party. Rimuru said, "Gobku, thanks for being so patient." And Gobku responds, "There's no need, we are fine." But the gate guards had the worst of it. Gobku turned to the ogre gatekeeper who happened to be napping. Ramiris said, "Yeah, sorry. I got a little excited." And trainee defended her, "It is not Ramiris-sama's fault. It was all because that gatekeeper said something mean to Ramiris-sama, so I used magic to put him to sleep for a bit." Rimuru thinks what had gotten into trainee's mind anyway? She really did cast a spell, apparently for Ramiris. Even Beretta seemed dumbfounded. Rimuru decides to listen to Ramiris and trainee later. For now he needed Beretta to continue his explanation. But he didn't have much to offer. They showed up here, trainee brought in wood while Beretta was doing the assembling. The end product was the small wooden shack in front of Rimuru. It looked like they were planning to build a balcony next. Why build a shack? This hut was meant to be the entrance to a new labyrinth. Speaking of this, Ramiris had mentioned something about wanting to move to this town. If all they were doing was setting up an entrance to Ramiris's labyrinth, putting such a small shack here didn't seem to pose a problem. Rimuru asked, "So, you were trying to build the shack when the gatekeeper stopped you? He was getting in your way, so you commanded trainee to put him to sleep, and then Gobku and these other craftsmen spotted you. Do I have this right?" And Ramiris hesitates, No, that's not. Well, not exactly the case, I don't think, maybe?" And Rimuru asked again, "In other words, my guess was correct?" And Ramiris tried to laugh it off, but this was simply too reckless. She knew this was Rimuru's territory, even the other demon lords had recognized it. What Ramiris was doing undoubtedly infringed on Rimuru's territory. If a war broke out over this, she'd have nothing to whine about it. But Rimuru paused a moment to think it over. Seeing the small shack in front of him, he had a sudden burst of inspiration. Perhaps he should encourage this, it wouldn't be so bad to let her create the labyrinth here. His conversation with Miles flashed before his eyes. He thinks that they needed to find a main event that would have people wanting to come back and see their nation again. These could be theaters, arenas and the health resort. But he has also been thinking about whether there could be other attractions. Do the same thing enough times, and you're bound to get bored. Besides, they wouldn't hold daily arena battles. At most they could hold 4 events in a year, considering it would be most appropriate to hold once per season. The same logic applied to horse racing. Content for ordinary folk to watch could be played every day, but these shows alone wouldn't be able to attract the nobles who had grown a hard-to-satisfy appetite. They would mainly be appealing to mass audiences, or maybe adventurers stopping by. Adventurers could make money in assorted ways, one being monster hunting. Perhaps they could build a labyrinth for them to release some monsters inside? In this way, wouldn't they be drawing a massive crowd every day? Speaking of labyrinths, there was none that could top an underground labyrinth. If they invited people to try and conquer the labyrinth, there may even be adventurers visiting for the sole purpose of exploration. Rimuru thinks this would work. He turned to Ramiris, who is still smiling awkwardly up at him. Even Rimuru was completely sure he couldn't trust her, but maybe they could make something out of this. He had made up his mind and decided to discuss his idea with Ramiris.